Welcome in, everyone. We're very excited to have you today for our March webinar celebrating advancing throughout the year. Today, our guest speakers will focus on supporting neurodiversity in the workplace. By the end of this webinar, you'll have a clear understanding of how you can support neurodivergent employees in your organization and how to advocate for your needs as if you are a neurodivergent employee yourself. You will also have a chance to hear from neurodivergent employees about their experiences and career growth. Now, a little bit about advancing throughout the year. This year, the Live Well San Diego is celebrating 15 years of promoting health, safety, and well-being. And as a part of this milestone, we're hosting a year-long series of webinars, networking events, and online engagement. Many of you have attended the Live Well Advancing Conference and School Summit this past November. This webinar is an extension of that event. We're here to stay connected, share new insights, learn from our community partners, and continue our important work that we started together. So before we begin, we also have a few reminders to share. This webinar is being recorded and your lines will be muted for the entire webinar. However, both the chat box and the Q&A functions are available for you all to use. Please take a moment to say hello by adding your name and organization to the chat box. Alrighty, and getting into it. So I'm Joe Nelson. I'm the graduate student worker who supports the community data and analytics team with the County of San Diego's Live Well San Diego support team, and I'll be your moderator today. Here's what we have on the agenda. So we'll start with two great presentations from our partners, Brain Balance of Greater San Diego and the County of San Diego's Neurodivergence Excellence Program. After presentations, we'll have some time to ask our presenters questions. This will be followed by a career panel made up of neurodivergent county employees. After the career panel, there will be an opportunity to ask our panelists questions. And lastly, we'll have a minute or two for an anonymous feedback form. Let's get started. Now we'll have just a brief introduction of our speakers today. From the County of San Diego's Health and Human Services Agency, we are joined by Steve Rohr, Nancy Cedio, Terrell Simmons, and Holly Norton. Also joining us today from Brain Balance of Greater San Diego is Dan Fong. I would also like to take a moment to recognize our Live Well San Diego team and thank them for all their hard work that they do behind the scenes. Before we get into the presentations, we'll start with a quick discussion on our Virtual Connection Hub, or as we like to call it, the VCH. So we'll take a pause to give you some time to answer that question. To do so, you can click the link in the chat or you can scan the QR code using your phone. Our question for today is, what practices or systems have you seen that support neurodivergent employees? Remember that there are no wrong answers and your answers will be displayed on our VCH so that everyone can learn from each other's experiences. To submit an answer, click New Post, input your email and whichever screen name you would like. You're not creating an account or a password, so it's very easy to participate. Then just type a few words or short sentences that answer the question. Your answer will be displayed as a sticky note on the VCH. We'll pause for a minute or two to give you some time to answer now. Alrighty. Thank you all. As a reminder, the VCH discussion question will continue to be active, so feel free to submit your answers throughout the webinar. So now we'll get into the presentations. To ask speaker questions, you can submit your questions in the Q&A box, which is a button at the bottom center of your screen. If you have comments to share during the presentations, you can input them in the chat box. And then our first presenter today is Dan Fong. Dan has a Bachelor's of Science in International Studies and is the Dynamic Center Coordinator for Brain Balance of Greater San Diego. Dan has a very versatile background in the hospitality industry, in addition to having been an international traveler while serving as a volunteer coordinator in Costa Rica, as well as an educator in Hong Kong. He's a multilingual native who enjoys jiu-jitsu and anything to do with the outdoors and spending time lounging with his dog. Dan, I'm going to pass it to you now so you can go through your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for welcoming me. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides here. One sec. Okay. Can everybody see that? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. Again, my name is Daniel and I am from Brain Balance. We are proud partners of Live Well San Diego. So we have 3 centers in San Diego, Chula Vista, and Encinitas, and this is going to be a kind of abbreviated version of what we normally do in-house for training and education. Neurodiversity 101. Welcome. So again, because of time, if you do want to learn more about Brain Balance, please visit us at brainbalancesandiego.com, and you can also scan our QR code there. Sorry, I'm just going to shrink something because, oops. Just close that. Oh. Do you still see my screen? My slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, okay, and a quick disclaimer. This is intended for educational and informational purposes. Please, if you're looking for medical advice, consult a medical professional. So a couple of goals and objectives that I want you guys to walk away with today about neurodiversity. The first one being that I want you to be able to identify at least 2 common neurobiological experiences. And then the second one is that I want you to be able to identify 2 ways to be more inclusive and neurodiversity affirming. Keep that in mind as we go through. Now I'd like for us, before we get started into these slides and presentations, to do a quick warm-up activity with me. So I want to get the brain flowing and brain getting started and kind of woken up. I know it's late afternoon, maybe everybody just had lunch. So if you like, please reach up into the sky, and we're going to do this a few times, and it's going to progressively get a little bit more difficult. And again, it'll be a quick warm-up. Take a deep breath in. And just release with your arms coming back down to your lap. Again, one more time. Reach up, and this time we're gonna inhale in a little deeper, and we're gonna get a little deeper stretch with our arms and neck. And exhale out one more time. Relax the shoulders. One more time, reach up. A little deeper this time. Reach with your neck and your shoulders. And release. Okay, last time. This time, I want to try holding our breaths as we take a deep breath in. Okay, ready? Reach up. Deep breath in. And release nice and slow. Relaxing shoulders. All right, thank you. I hope that was helpful. I hope that gets your brain moving, and I hope you are a little bit more focused and relaxed now, okay? So a little bit more about myself. Like Joe said, I do have a background in hospitality. I was born and raised here in San Diego. Eventually I moved abroad and I lived in Costa Rica for 2 years, where I worked as an international volunteer coordinator. I worked with people from all over the world while I was in Costa Rica in various community projects. And then I moved to Hong Kong, where I was an educator for about 4 years. before coming to Brain Balance. Something that led me to Brain Balance is, I have a passion for working with people and helping people. So I get to do that now at Brain Balance. I support families that are kind of navigating through behavioral learning and different cognitive abilities. At Brain Balance, we do personalized evidence-based programs for kids, teens, and adults. We focus on people with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and many more. But also to note that you don't have to be medically diagnosed to do our programs. We also have like musicians, we have artists, athletes that come to our program for better brain health. We focus on things like anxiety, stress management, and memory, and many, many more. And again, no two people are the same. So our program is personalized to every client that we have. Again, because of time, I'll quickly just kind of let you know that we are evidence and research based. If you do want to learn more about that, you can go to brainbalance.com/research. So diversity falls under this umbrella here. If you look at the illustration, we have inclusion, diversity, and equity. When we have all three come together, we achieve belonging. And that's ultimately what we're looking for. And diversity falls under that belonging umbrella. We want everybody to feel like they belong. And again, just surface level, we're going to just touch on this a little bit, but I want you to keep that in mind as we continue forward. So neuro, what is neuro? This is where I like participation. If you would like to go in the chat, go ahead and type, what do you think neuro means?
The neurological system.
You can type that in the chat. It's like first answer. Yeah, brain. Very good. Good job, guys. Neuro. So neuro means nerve, our nervous system, and our brain is at the center of our nervous system. Excellent. So let's take a look at some key terms. Neurotypical. Neurotypical is defined as having brain functions that are considered normal. And again, normal is still up for debate today. Neurodivergent. Neurodivergent would be somebody's brain who diverges significantly from what is considered normal. So what we consider different. And again, different not meaning less. Keep that in mind as well. Neurodiversity, of course, is the celebration, acknowledgement that everyone is different and we have different cognitive functioning. I like to think of this as neurodivergent being adjective, neurodiversity being noun. And again, we also want to keep in mind that neurodiversity in the workplace and in our communities as well. So that would be how we would use that now. So the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Classified anxiety, ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and even neurotypical as being neurocognitive differences. So that's a very a key there that kind of stood out to me. Even neurotypicality is defined as neurodiversity. Okay. Harvey Bloom, American journalist in the late 1990s, said, neurodiversity may be every bit as crucial for the human race as biodiversity is for life in general. Who can say what form of wiring will be best at any given moment? And wiring is key here too. Wiring is referring to, the different connections and disconnections in our brains. About 15 to 20% of the global population is neurodivergent. And I think that's about 1 in 8 in the US. Another key statistic is that about 10% consider neurodivergency in the workplace. Employers, 10% of employers consider and make actual movements towards neurodiversity in the workplace. And that's a pretty low number, and that's kind of why we're here, where we want to work on that through education. Okay, so back in the chat, can anybody tell me what are some neurobiological challenges? Think of some challenges that we might have neurobiologically or neurodevelopmentally. What might be some challenges that we may see, whether in the workplace, in our communities, in schools? Chat box. Give you guys a couple of seconds. Yeah. It's like hyperactivity, attention, focus, mood regulation. Excellent. Yeah, you guys know your stuff. Very good. Sensory coordination. Yep. Amazing. Okay, so what are some strengths? Can you list some strengths, neurobiological strengths that we may see? And I'll give you a few seconds for that too. Oh, good one. Okay, very good. Looks like yeah. So I see creativity, empathy, passion, ability to hyper focus. That's right. Excellent. Thank you. So let's take a look here. We have neurodiversity. Does anybody know what dyscalculia is? Dyscalculia. There's a few here. I see some, yeah, some hand raises, definitely. Yep, in chats. Yeah. So difficulty decoding, processing numbers, mathematical skills, right? Those can be very challenging. That's a very common, right? What about dyspraxia? Does anybody know what dyspraxia is? Okay, so dyspraxia is physical, right? It's coordination, okay? Again, there's many that go around here, the neurodiversity, but we don't have time to go over everything, so I'm going to briefly go through. But what are some of these strengths? So somebody who has dyscalculia, some strengths are verbal skills, being an innovative thinker, being very creative. They typically have better memory, right? Same with dyspraxia, right? More in touch with their feelings, more intuitive, right? Okay, so let's name off some neurobiological experiences. We've already said a few and talked about a few. Can you name off a few that we maybe haven't mentioned yet? You can do that in chat too. I'll give you a second. Think about ones we haven't mentioned yet. There's a lot. What are neurobiological experiences? For example, okay, bipolar disorder. We've mentioned ADHD, we've mentioned autism, right? We just talked about dyscalculia, executive functioning, sensory overload, sensory processing disorder, yeah, SPD. Okay, here we go. Here again, this is just a few of them, okay? You can see them right here, anxiety, Good, thank you, chat. SPD, Asperger's, good. So let's dive a little deeper. And again, because of time, we were only able to set a few that I was going to talk about. So let's talk about some neurodivergent experiences. Let's take a look at this picture. So I'm going to need a bit of participation here. What does this represent? Does anybody know? We're going to talk about the boy in the middle. He's in a classroom, and these are his thoughts in class. What do you think this represents? Yes, Stephen. Yeah, ADHD, that's right. Now, again, these examples are going to be a small taste of maybe what somebody that has these experiences might experience. It doesn't mean that it's exact, okay? These are just examples, again, for educational purposes. So, Edward Hallowell once famously said that somebody with a brain with ADHD is like driving a Ferrari with bicycle brakes, and that our thoughts flow so rapidly and it's difficult sometimes to slow down because we have bicycle brakes, right? So let's take a slightly deeper dive into ADHD, sorry. What are some challenges of somebody that has ADHD? This one's a pretty easy one. It's pretty common. Yeah. Top two answers: can't focus, sitting still. Good job. Yep. Inability to focus, somebody who daydreams a lot. Hyperactivity, can't sit still, is fidgety, impulsive. Yeah. So then what are some strengths? What are some strengths of somebody with ADHD? Man, you guys are quick. Yeah, creative, thinking outside the box. Hyper focus, somebody who can be hyper focused on tasks, somebody that's very social, has a lot of energy, passion, intuitive. Now, the important part of this slide is consideration, right? So when we talk about considerations, think about environmental changes, think about support tips, right? What are some considerations we might have for somebody with ADHD? Very good. Keeping direction short, concise. Yeah, removing interruptions. Some environmental changes could be private rooms, quiet rooms, right? Flexible work hours if possible. Good. Very good. All right, let's continue on. I don't want to go over time here. So, next picture. Take a look at this. Again, we're focusing on the person in the middle. Tell me, what neurobiological experience is this? What might they be experiencing? Quick answers. Good job. Okay. Yeah, so I see sensory disorder, sensory overload, fear, anxiety, stress. Yeah, this is sensory processing disorder, SPD, right? So somebody with SPD, they may be hypersensitive and they can also be hyposensitive. Hyposensitive is more sensory seeker, right? Attention seeking, sensory seeking, textiles, things like that. So what are some challenges that somebody with SPD might have? Can you think of some challenges? Good. Yeah, socializing, sensitivity to noise, light, texture, sounds. Very good. And then we have, let's go into strengths. What are some strengths? Looks like I have to go a little quicker just to make sure I finish in time. So strengths. Yeah, heightened senses, right? Somebody who is a problem solver, more intuitive, in touch with their feelings, pays attention to details, right? And then of course, the important part is considerations. What are some considerations like environmental changes, support tips that we might have for somebody with SPD? Good. Yeah, quiet workspace. Definitely. Right? Environmental factors such as sensory aids, having clear expectations and plans for work. Okay, good. Okay, let's keep going. Last one. This one I really want to get through. So take a look at this paragraph here. Here's what I want. I want you to take just a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds because of time, to try to read this paragraph on your own. Just read through it as best you can. 10 seconds, ready, go. Okay, so I know I probably didn't give you enough time, but that's okay. Why don't we go into chat? Put a 5 in if you're able to read most of this. Like if you would have had more time, you would have gotten through this. 5. If you were able to get through the first and second sentence, almost halfway, I guess, put a 3. Put a 3 in there. And if you gave up and you had difficulty reading this, maybe just the first sentence, 1. Put a 1 in there. We've got some 5s, we've got some 3s. Yeah, and some 1s. Yeah. Oops. This can be frustrating. This was again. So what do you think this neurobiological experience is? Yeah, dyslexia. Again, this is a taste of what somebody with dyslexia might experience. It can be frustrating. Most commonly diagnosed learning disorder here, right? So what are some challenges? What are some challenges to somebody with dyslexia? Well, we just saw an example right now, right? So difficulty identifying letters, decoding words, right? Difficulty with spelling, right? And what are some strengths? What might be some strengths for somebody with dyslexia? Attention to detail, 3D modeling. Okay, good answer. Yeah, somebody who's very creative. They also typically have really good memory, interpersonal skills. Good. And so more importantly, again, considerations, maybe environmental factors, support here. What can we do? Verbal directions. Yep. Audio, verbal. Yep. Verbal instructions. Excellent answer. Visual as well, right? Visual and auditory cues and tools. Good job, everybody. Excellent. All right. So neurodiversity is the result of wiring, connections, disconnections, and development in the brain. It's our brain. So how do we strengthen these brain connectivities? Well, at Brain Balance, we strengthen brain connectivity by using combination of exercises that impact both sensory motor systems. We focus on visual, audio, tactile, right? Gross motor and fine functioning, okay? Again, brief introduction to what we do. Please go to our website, brainbalancesandiego.com. I'm gonna try to wrap up here as quickly as possible. Thank you. So again, I want you to walk away with knowing 2 biological experiences. I hope you're able to achieve that. And I want you to walk away with being able to identify 2 ways to be more inclusive for neurodiversity, okay? Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the rest of the presenters and panelists. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dan. That presentation was great. So presenting next, we have Holly Norton. Holly Norton is a dedicated leader in equity, diversity, and inclusion with over 20 years of experience in education, training, engagement, and program management across schools, private industry, and the government. Since 2021, she has played a pivotal role with one of the largest county governments in the United States, working to enhance workplace inclusivity and create pathways for neurodivergent talent in public service. As a group program manager in the county's Department of Human Resources and Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Division, Holly oversees award-winning Neurodivergent Excellence and JAYS programs initiatives, which focus on supporting neurodivergent employees and fostering an inclusive workplace culture. Her work has been instrumental in developing strategies, programs, and tools that enable employees and prospective employees of all backgrounds, strengths, and abilities to thrive. Through her expertise and commitment, Holly is helping transform workplace cultures, ensuring that all employees feel valued, supported, and empowered to succeed. Now I'm going to pass it off to Holly.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Holly Norton, as Joe just said, and I am a group program manager for the County of San Diego. And I have the honor of leading 2 programs that illustrate the real-world strategies for inclusivity being implemented here at the county. the countywide Neurodivergent Excellence, and the inclusive internship opportunity known as JACE program. I think if you ask any of my colleagues, which I can see many of you here, so nice to see all your names popping up, many of them can attest to the passion and drive that I bring to these programs. And it's not just that I love the impact and the culture shifting, which I definitely do, but it's also that I identify as neurodivergent myself. I have dyslexia, and I'm also the proud mama of two very neuro-spicy kids. So this is my life, and this work for me is very much about helping to create spaces where all of us can thrive. Today, I'll share more about the meaningful journey we're just beginning, how we're putting inclusive principles into practice, the tools and programs we've developed so far, and the impact we're starting to see. We know this work is not perfect, nor are we done yet. And we also recognize that neurodivergence is just one part of people's identity, and that lived experience, both in life as a whole and within the county or wherever you work, are as varied as the individuals themselves. So before we dive in, I would love to know a little bit more about those of us who are in this space. How many of you either identify as neurodivergent or have worked with, managed, or mentored a neurodivergent employee or colleague? You can either raise your hand, put a fun little emoji in the chat, or say yes. Any of those things work. I love how happening the chat is, by the way. Keep it up. All right. Beautiful. Yes. For those of you who are not or haven't, we are definitely going to build on what we just heard from Dan and Brain Balance. And for those of you who are or have, I hope you'll gain some new insights to enhance your approach. So the county is committed to building a neuro-inclusive workforce. Those two key programs, JAYS program and Neurodivergent Excellence. JAYS launched in 2019, and it provides a structured, supportive internship experience for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, helping them develop workplace skills and build careers. Neurodivergent Excellence launched in 2022, and it focuses on broader systemic changes, enhancing recruitment, retention, and workplace culture for neurodivergent employees utilizing universal design principles. Together, these programs are breaking down barriers, creating opportunities, and demonstrating that inclusion benefits everyone, not just those directly participating, but entire teams, departments, and communities that we serve. So I have another mental exercise for you. Imagine that you're hiring for a clerical position in your team. Now, what would be any of your hesitations? Just remember, mental exercise, you don't have to list all these out. What would be some of your hesitations in hiring an intern with intellectual or developmental disabilities? Just pause for a moment, hold it in your brain. Now, thinking of those things that are first coming up for you, how could mentorship, training, and or minor adjustments remove those hesitations for you? Because that's exactly what Jay's program is designed to do. Jay's is about creating meaningful opportunities for interns, departments, and our county as a whole. Now, it's also important that I note how essential partnership is. Our program wouldn't be possible without our community partners, Pride Industries, who's the employer of record and service supports provider, and San Diego Regional Center, who facilitates funding and client referrals. So what do the benefits look like for those impacted by our audience? those impacted audiences here. First, interns gain hands-on clerical experiences, mentorship, and hopefully the confidence to pursue long-term careers. Departments benefit from additional supports, new perspectives, and an opportunity to engage in mentorship. And we, as an organization, we expand our ability to serve the community by fostering a workforce that is truly reflective of those we support. This population is historically known for being under or unemployed, but we're proud that thanks to the supported experience that just under half of our graduating interns since our 2022 relaunch have gone on to apply, interview, and be hired by the county. Reason to celebrate for sure. Now, don't just take my word for it. For the program's success and its impact, I'm going to show you in just a minute a few quotes from past interns. First comes, I developed many skills in this internship. I learned so much. How to deal with customers and how to manage people's tickets when they come in and out, mail, minute orders, and even court reports. I learned how to use Microsoft Excel and Microsoft SharePoint. I developed and created SharePoint into interactive websites. First, I used Excel to create the spreadsheet, and I converted it into SharePoint. I created a list of community resources, and the caseworkers used it to help those in need. Finally, thanks to Jay's program, I found a job that I really love. I continue to learn at this job, and I'm grateful for people that continue to teach me the skills that I need in order to be successful. Beyond the immediate benefits, Jay's program opens doors to broader conversations about accessibility and inclusion. When teams welcome an intern, they begin to see new possibilities, not just for the individual, but for how they can enhance their own workplace. This is why we encourage more departments to explore inclusive internships and why individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities should consider participating. Because this program doesn't just change individuals' lives, it helps to reshape workplaces to be more inclusive for everyone. And don't worry, I'll drop tons of links in the bottom once I'm done. So I promise I'll share all the different resources. So another mental exercise, and this time I would love participation in the chat in just a minute. It'll build off your initial question that LiveWell asked. So think about your own workplace. Have you had the opportunity to see an inclusive practice, whether big or small, that made things better for everyone? Maybe it was structured onboarding processes, clear communication, or even flexible work arrangements. If so, drop what comes to mind into the chat, please. So. I'll put that question in the chat because I know that helps too. Once again, what's one inclusive practice, big or small, that you've observed making a positive impact for everyone? Flexible work environments, audio presentations for slides, ordering soundless clocks to minimize the sensory discomfort. Yeah, having multiple methods. Noise canceling headphones. Think we had several fabulous answers on there too. Things I hadn't thought about, like the clocks going to silence so that that noise sensory is lessened in that space. Audio for slide presentations. Yes. Tactile items like fidgets. Oh, I have it. I was just telling Nancy before this. There's a reason why I have my thumb hole ones is it allows me to have that sensory that I need at times to be able to calm and all the other things and focus. So yes, and transcripts for our audio, being able to have closed captions, all those things. Okay. Thank you. Keep them coming because everyone else can see as you do that. Because that's exactly the idea behind universal design. It's not about extra steps for some, it's about making workplaces better for everyone. Through Neurodivergent Excellence, our program, we are committed to expanding support for neurodivergent employees and prospective employees by embedding inclusive practices into our workplace culture. This includes training all staff to build awareness, refining our hiring practices to be more welcoming to neurodivergent candidates, and strengthening partnerships with community organizations to enhance outreach and recruitment. These efforts help to ensure that neurodivergent employees not only join our workforce, but also belong, contribute, and succeed. So, like I said, partnership and collaboration are absolutely essential. And this program is no different. We knew we needed experts to help us lead this expansion, and we gained a partner with a focus on neurodiverse and inclusive employment in Wrongham. While Wrongham has been guiding us on this journey internally, we lean into an ever-growing group of self-identifying neurodivergent employees, as well as a network of leads from every single 56 plus department that we have here at the county. Now, from the very beginning, early on, we adopted the motto of small incremental steps, believing that multiplied across the enterprise would lead to long-term sustainable growth. And yes, Christy, this is being recorded, so you can get it afterwards as well. So we anchored the program in these 4 strategies: surveying for insights, employee training, actionable work plans, and recruiting diverse talent. Each and every one of these strategies plays a pivotal role in our approach, and it also serves as a foundation of this initiative. Now, our annual neurodivergence training series rollouts, both our insights and understandings, which is for all employees, as well as the cultivating an inclusive workplace, our supervisors courses, have been completed by almost every single one of our 20,000 plus employees here at the county, with a 99% completion percentage for each one of those. This is absolutely a huge win for our organization, as employees have had the opportunity to learn about neurodiversity concepts and how they apply to our work environment. I know, isn't it amazing? Oh. Now, each department has annual work plans that focus on small incremental steps that we were talking about to increase their inclusive culture and enhancing outreach and recruitment. One of the most powerful aspects of neurodivergent excellence has been the way departments are embedding inclusion into their daily operations, making real lasting impact here. These include at least 14 departments introducing sensory-friendly workplaces, things you were just talking about, adding tools like noise-canceling headphones, quiet pods, adjustable lighting, and better supports for neurodivergent employees. Teams fostering personal connections, holding discussions where employees share their experiences with neurodivergence, helping normalize conversations and strengthening workplace support. Through digital education efforts, highlighting that accessibility supports are already within the applications we have, like Microsoft Teams, closed captioning, Microsoft Narrate and Editor in Word and Outlook, and departments have been able to make neurodiversity resources widely accessible, equipping employees with tools to foster inclusivity. And that's another resource that I'll add at the end. Microsoft has a whole section on neurodiversity on their website. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely do that. And then in recruitment, there we go. Departments have partnered with our Department of Human Resources and community orgs, like I was saying, to improve transparency in hiring, expand outreach to disability-focused career fairs, and they're helping us build a workforce that better reflects the community we serve. All of these efforts and so many more show that when inclusion is intentional, it benefits everyone, making our workforce stronger, more adaptable, and more welcoming. Now, this initiative goes beyond accommodations and it's about universal gains. A more inclusive workplace benefits everyone by improving communication, hiring processes, fostering a culture of innovation and collaboration. But this next comment is one of my absolute favorites. It's left by one of the participants completing their training, and it really sums up the impact of these efforts. I'm a high-functioning neurodivergent employee who can personally relate to the scenarios described. Some were so close to home, they made me cry. Having lost a job in a different county, I was hostile to neurodiverse individuals. It is particularly meaningful to have San Diego County bring awareness and inclusion for our community. I have ADHD, dyslexia, processing differences, and likely some form of autism. I've struggled since I was a child, but wasn't formally diagnosed until I was a medical student. And I continue to struggle in a world not geared for the neurodiverse. However, San Diego County is the first place I've been in a long time where I feel accepted and can be open to my neurotypia without fear of retaliation or bullying. I mean, right there, mic drop, right? And the more of these stories that we hear, the impact just comes to home. Now, inclusion isn't just a value here, it's a strategy that helps our organization succeed. We've had so many lessons so far on this journey that we've only barely begun, and we're already getting to see some of those fruits from the efforts that we've had. The next two slides provide 4 takeaways each, and in case you'd like to screen capture them, wait till I click through them. The green text is all of our lessons learned, and the blue is what we've gained from it. So, made you a handout. One of the biggest takeaways so far is the meaningful change happens when we continuously learn, listen, and adapt. That expanding partnerships, leveraging champions, and creating safe spaces for open conversations have helped remove barriers and expand a sense of belonging for all of our employees. Now, because of these efforts, we've made tangible improvements to hiring processes, strengthened our ability to retain neurodivergent talent, seen small intentional changes like adjusting workflows and communication styles can lead to significant long-term impacts. And this work is ongoing, but every single step forward makes a difference, shaping a more inclusive county workforce. So if you want to take a screen capture before I go on to the next, I'll pause. And I don't know, Joe, are the slides going to be available after?
We can also post the slides. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Where do you begin if you'd like similar impacts to happen where you are? How about by making the workplace more inclusive doesn't require massive changes overnight. It's small intentional actions, whether that's making sure your communications are accessible, reading an article on neurodivergent workplace inclusion, or simply asking some very thoughtful questions in a meeting. It's natural to feel hesitant, worry about saying or doing the wrong thing, but avoiding these conversations doesn't move us forward. Engaging in them does. Identifying and leaning into your incredible leaders, colleagues, and resources is essential when guiding and supporting these efforts. And remember, you don't need to be in a leadership role to drive change. Inclusion happens at every single level, at every single space. And when you champion inclusion, whether by speaking up or sharing ideas or simply making space for different perspectives, you show what's possible. Every step we take together strengthens this culture of belonging that we're seeking, and it ensures we create a workplace where all of us can flourish. Inclusion begins with small, meaningful actions. I would love it if you wouldn't mind, because you can screen capture in this time too, but if you wouldn't mind in the chat, share one new idea that you might have got from the couple of presentations you've just seen. So share one new idea that might stick with you. So much. Love it. Providing written materials. Yes. Small changes can make big impacts. Different is not less. Just listening and having the conversation and engaging can be the pathway to learning and change and growth. Yes. Value uniqueness. Welcoming to all. Saying good morning to your colleagues, being friendly always helps. Absolutely. Now, the first step, as I've been saying over and over again, is being intentional. The more we do this together, the bigger the impact can be. So you saw this image a couple slides ago with all of us painting. So if you've ever been at our signature waterfront park at the County Administrative Center, you may have seen the beautiful mural that's on the back of the snack shack. And it's a visual representation of our commitment to this work. We've shared just a scrape of what we've actually been doing here at the county and what's happening throughout the county by hundreds of passionate staff with amazing stories to tell. And I am so honored to be a part of this journey with all of these passionate folks. And I thank you for this time and space. I know I'll toss it back over to Joe before we go to the next. And while I do, I'll copy and paste a bunch of different resources into the chat for you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Holly, and thank you again, Dan, both for those amazing presentations and for all the insights that you shared with us. Unfortunately, because of our technical difficulties, we're supposed to have a little bit of time right now for Q&A, but we have some fudge time at the end. So if it's okay with you both, what I'd like to do is basically have everybody just answer questions at the end. But keeping in line with the same themes and everything, I would now like to take some time to introduce our career panelists as we move into our career panel portion. And then Holly, if you could stop sharing your screen and let Jen pop back on. Awesome, thank you. Alrighty, so now we'll move on to the career portion of our webinar, where we will hear from 3 neurodivergent county employees. Our first panelist is Nancy Cedio, a human service specialist who works at the Access Call Center. Nancy has an educational background in psychology and child development. Nancy began her career in San Jose, and has an extensive work history as an educator to all age groups in various settings, including special education and elementary through high school students. She moved to San Diego in 2007, where she continued to work as an educator before joining the county in 2013. Thank you for joining us, Nancy. And then next, we have Terrell Simmons, a dedicated equity, diversity, and inclusion champion who is currently serving as the interim director for the Office of Equity and Racial Justice here at San Diego County. With over a decade of experience, he has played a key role in workforce development, employee training, and strategic business coaching, including his work at San Diego Workforce Partnership, where he helped grow Connect 2 Careers from a $500,000 summer path program to a $3 million year-round initiative benefiting over 5,000 youth. Terrell's leadership and community service has reflected in his roles as a RISE San Diego Urban Leadership Graduate, a 2020 Rockwood Leadership Institute Fellow, and a board director for Village UP. He was honored as HR and Diversity Professional of the Year in 2023 by the San Diego Business Journal. His lifelong commitment to equity has impacted thousands, from students to entrepreneurs, as he continues to drive innovative programs that foster inclusion and opportunity. Our third panelist joining us today is Stephen Rohr, a health service specialist who supports the Family Resource Center. Steve is a former educator and father to 2 sons on the spectrum. Steve has worked with neurodivergent people for over 20 years. He joined the county a little over a year ago after leaving the classroom during quarantine to teach his own children. His hobbies include tabletop role-playing games, camping, judo, and the arts. Now that we've met our wonderful panelists, we're going to jump into our questions. So there it is. So our first question of the day is, what has been your education or career experience that has led you to your career today? What kind of education or opportunities do you feel prepared you for your career specifically? And we'll start off hearing hearing from Terrell.
First, let me say thank you for having me on this panel. It's always good to be in space with all the folks that I know. Holly and I got to work closely together with all the Neurodivergent program and Jay's program, so it's always good to see it just continuously grow. In regards to the question, my educational career journey has been a little bit of a roller coaster, and the best way I could put it in 3 minutes, I actually started out, a lot of people don't know this, doing radio and television because I was really passionate about storytelling, and I dreamed of having a career in broadcasting, but as life has it, it really takes a lot of turns and twists. And after being in and out of school for years, I end up transferring to a university where I sat with um, a a counselor, and the counselor was telling me like, "Oh, you got all these credits," and I remember I was doing a change in what I wanted to do my career because I was no longer passionate about broadcasting and the intricacies of radio and television after doing some internships, and I knew of the bureaucracy and the systems that were in place there that didn't allow me to storytell the way I wanted to. And so the career counselor goes, "Well, you have enough credits here to finish up with your marketing degree." And I was like, whatever could get me to the quickest path to get my degree, I'm on it. Let's do it. Let's. I was 8 years in school now by this time, and I said, all right, business marketing it is. Did that really launch me into my corporate career, where I entered the corporate workforce after getting my degree. And at that time, working with several corporate companies, I thought I was going to move up the seniorship ladder or to senior leadership in a role in corporate America. And so to do that, I had to go back to school, and then I earned my degree and a master's in organizational development. Um, but after getting the peek behind the curtain, I wasn't really sold on climbing that corporate ladder. And I was looking for something a little bit more meaningful because I was really passionate about community and helping people. Um, and I got to do that in a lot of different roles that I did volunteer work for, like AmeriCorps and so forth. And one of my mentors at the time said, why don't you go into the nonprofit and do nonprofit work? And I was like, they pay people to work in nonprofit? It's like, yeah, you could make a career out of it. So I pivoted again, and this time I went and got a certificate in fundraising development. And then after I got that, I landed in doing program development instead, which led me to the workforce partnership doing program development. And that role gave me incredible hands-on experience with building equitable programs and leading community-focused initiatives. And then along the way, I enrolled in several leadership training programs that sharpened my skills, especially as I started managing large projects on diverse teams. But every step of the way, my path has combined education with real-world learning, and that blend has really, really prepared me to do the work that I love today, centered on equity, impact, and empowering others.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing, Terrell. Now we'll pass it over to Nancy.
My career and experience and education. Well, running myself through the field of education, basing my instincts from my studies in psychology and child development, from which I received my BA from San Jose State University. I use the studies of psychology and child development, my knowledge and experience. I've run the gamut. I have from prior field work, such as being employed in group homes with disadvantaged and abused and mentally ill due to circumstances youth, and the juvenile court schools, and even in my own alma mater through Eastside Union High School District in East San Jose, working as a high school English teacher and as a long-term substitute. I tried picking up on the nuances and the vocal changes. When it was in person, when I worked at the family resource centers, posturing changes to read my customers through the calls. It's tone, movement speaks volumes. Just as, you know, picture is worth 1,000 words. You hear that from every teacher. Tone changes when you ask the right questions. It can make or break a case. Hesitation, a look to another person for an answer, a voice in the background during a call. It all adds into the dynamics of how a person's behavior during the interactions evolves through the mindset of psychology. Most people who ask for the public assistance are honestly in need, but a handful are dishonest. Noticing it, reading the changes through my education and experience sure helps to spot it, but it also helps to spot those who are truly in need. I can hear it. I can feel it. I used to be surrounded by it. Being in those environments. Being in those environments and being a part of those environments, living within low income, high risk environments, be it my old neighborhood and my old high school district, or serving juvenile court schools or the group homes, it brings to light the complexities of life that one does not normally see day to day otherwise. My family was in the median and lived well within their means. We didn't splurge, but we didn't skimp out on what we wanted or needed either. Now, if you notice, someone with no need for public assistance can go to the store and think nothing of how are you going to pay for your food or groceries this week, while others are at home sitting and counting their pennies and hoping they can afford their food without the use of the stack of coupons in addition to the benefits card they have in their pocket with a handful of dollars left on it that's supposed to last them the next couple of weeks because something unfortunate came up or they had to buy chicken noodle soup because someone wasn't feeling well this week, and that had to be an added expense because they weren't anticipating that in their usual budget. I've seen it. I've helped some of my own extended family. Even before I started working for San Diego County in 2013, when I lived up in San Jose, I know how hard it is. My goal is to make it easier to live, to deal with, and to live, especially when interacting with me at least. And I'm hoping, you know, my experience, my education can deal with that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. And then now we'll pass it to Steve.
Like Nancy, I was also a educator in the past. I worked here as a teacher in San Diego County. I pretty much been a teacher my whole life before I came to the county. I started teaching first aid and CPR at age 15, went on to be a lifeguard and a swim coach and swim teacher. And so all of my jobs have been education. Education background is really helpful in just dealing with people, especially dealing with people who are going through issues, who are having problems, because it teaches you empathy. It teaches you how people develop, how people think, how people learn, and what people need really to get through their day or to get through a phone call. Because frankly, sometimes we're helping clients in our job get through that phone call because it might be the worst day of their life. And that empathy and that care and being able to hear on the phone that maybe this person needs me to slow down, talk a little slower, and just needs a second to collect themselves. That empathy goes a long way in this job. I feel like that prepared me more than anything else for this career. As far as opportunities that I had in life, I had the opportunity that I don't think any other autistic person is going to have, which is not having a label. I didn't know that I was not supposed to, do things. I didn't know. I had no clue that my brain was not the same as everybody else out there on that college campus. So I just picked myself up and kept going. Do I wish that I knew? 100%. Do I also fear that had I known, I would have maybe used it as an excuse? Yeah, I fear that, and I worry about that for the future. Um, I want people to take advantage of all the opportunities they have and all of the resources that were not available to my generation and do better with them. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all for sharing. All great insights and all very, very important. So now we're going to move on to our second question. And for our next question, we're going to start with Nancy, but we would like to know, what does a typical workday look like for you?
Okay, so I cannot express my day without prefacing this. I'm proud to say that I see myself as a professional in my field. However, I admit I may not be 100% professional, but I get my job done. I do it well, and I do get my accolades from customers, peers, supervisors, and management about what I get done. I am, as most people would say, extremely awkward. I am full of anxieties, but my job, that comes across as energy. And that pairs well with the caller's hope for someone who's willing and happy to help. Terrell's laughing. I get it. All right. I am neurodiverse in the sense that I've been clinically diagnosed as having ADHD. I'm sure there's more to it. But so far, that's what the diagnosis is for me and my case. ADHD is calmed by coffee, at least in my case. I have a cup of coffee in hand, probably my third or fourth of the day, and start taking calls at 8:30. I pick up the call with a smile, get the vital information of case or social security number, verify identity, etc. And not everyone does this. If they have a birthday close by, etc., wish them happy birthday, or just generally say something, if they do not, about how I would love to make their day extra spectacular. Yeah, in those voices. Or help them make their day better. Just the encouragement of wanting to help and stating how much you appreciate your job sends a signal to the customer that you really do want to help. And they stop whatever anger or stress expression they were about to have and speak kindly and work with you to fix or address their issues most of the time, not always. I can take anywhere from 30 to 40 calls in a day. I have taken at one point, way back in the beginning of my calls, I believe my most was 86. That was fun. But it hasn't been nearly that much lately. Depending on the call volume and the caller's needs, and if I use our tier 1, the triage basics, the first end, or my experience as a human services specialist, which I have over 12 years to help the customer. Sometimes the call is just, let's take a deep breath and let me explain what's going on with your case. I love when I get to do that because I get to use my psychology degree to calm a very stressed caller in a time of need. Plus, I get to use and I know I have one of these, voice over for meditation recording voices. So I use it and it works. My panelist friends are laughing because I did it on them earlier. Essentially, I take the calls. I complete the call if I can, or within 5 minutes, or I pass them forward to someone who can take further action on the case if I can't do it within those first few minutes. or they, you know, if they have to, refer to someone who can. Thanks. I'll pass back. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Nancy. And then now I'm going to pass it back to Steve.
My day starts at about 7:45 when I come to work and sit down at my desk because I can't be any place less than 15 minutes early without having an anxiety. So I come in, I sit down, I relax, get my computer booted up, say hello to everybody I can, and smile on the way in because that's one of my things. I always like to just be as positive as I can in the workplace. It pays off dividends for a neurodiverse person. After that, I look at what's on my docket for the day. I look at my schedule. Do I have interviews that day? Am I calling people to interview them in regards to an update or a continuing review or an intake? And I go through my scheduled appointments. In the meantime, in between appointments, I'm processing various paperworks, touching back, trying to get into contact with clients that maybe are missing items that I really want to get into contact with, or maybe I know that they just need a little bit extra help. So I know that I should probably give that extra call to them because, hey, they really need this help. A part of that is from me knowing how hard it is to pick up that phone. This goes back to my anxiety and my neurodivergence. Sometimes neurodivergence, processing disorders, picking up a phone is sometimes one of the toughest things you can do in a day. You don't know the person on the other end of that line. You don't know what that experience is going to be like. It's scary. So I really try to be proactive in my job because of that, and really go the extra mile to make sure that I'm contacting clients and that I'm following up for them so that they don't have to worry about it. And I'm off at 5. It's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. And then I'll now pass it to Terrell.
I just love that we're having this discussion. And the reason why I'm laughing so hard because I realized that me and Nancy are the same flavor of neuro spicy. Because I've had this connection with Nancy. It was the first time we meet, Nancy? I know I'm going off script a little bit. When did we first meet? How did we first meet again? I can't really remember.
Oh, I don't remember, but it had a lot to do with the focus group.
Oh yeah, that's right. We
It
were doing
did.
the focus groups
We were
around.
doing the focus group, and but it was also through my husband.
That.
Yes, because
So
you
we
guys were
connected
on a
after the focus group around neurodiversity. The first time
yes,
that we realized we had
yes.
more connections I
We had more
remember.
connections. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And the reason why I'm loving this so much is just because, I grew up at a time when it wasn't cool to have these neurodiversity conversations. Like I got diagnosed when I was young and, the school to prison pipeline was a real thing. So my dad and parents didn't allow me to go get like go down the whole clinical treatment and all that stuff. And so I struggled a lot in school and in life because I didn't have the tools, I didn't have the verbiage, I didn't have all these things. And I'm gonna give you context. The reason why I say all that is just because, you know, I felt like a failure when I had to fit into a box of certain jobs that were very like box, like you have to have so much structure. And I failed tremendously at those jobs, and I became depressed. And then I learned all my life how to mask and how to survive and how to do different tactics to get through a work day if I'm in a very rigid system. And now a typical day for me now, even though it's usually full of meetings, I'm in full of meetings solving complex problems, and no 2 days look alike. I'm planning projects, sharing updates on things that need to happen to move the organization forward. You know, I also spend a good amount of my time reviewing documents and giving feedback to help guide programs or procedures at the county. That's not my favorite task to do. I'm not like detailed orientated like that. So that takes a lot of energy. I have to be really super in a zone of hyper focusedness to really do that part well. But honestly, my favorite part of the work is when I get to be in community at events like this and meetings with people to learn what they're doing and share helpful resources or ideas. And you know, no 2 days are alike or the same, but that's how I like it, and that's how I operate best. Like in my own neurospiciness, right? Like being too constricted and mundane is not a good thing for me. So every day brings me something new, and I really enjoy that variety.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing the insights and, the very personal peek into what the day-to-day looks like and how it varies just for all of you. It's really, really interesting to hear about it all. So our next question is for Steve. So this question is, what challenges have you faced during your career and what skills have you developed that have helped you overcome these challenges?
I have faced a lot of challenges. One of my favorite poets is Charles Bukowski, and he has a great poem called "What Matters Most in Life Is How Well You Walk Through the Fire." And I love that because we all have to walk through some fire in our lives. Everybody has issues. Everybody's going to experience some things that are unpleasant. It's part of life. And what matters most is how well you can get through it and just pick yourself up and go. I come from a military family, a very, very military family. My dad was a Master Chief. My mom's father was a Navy chief out of World War II. So very, very military. Not doing something or not trying was never an option. Not getting up after you got knocked down wasn't even thought of. You just did. And I'm not saying that everybody has to do that and everybody has to live their life that way. Everybody needs a hand up. Everybody needs a hand out to help them up when they get knocked down. But one of the things that developed in me is just the superpower of being uncomfortable and being able to allow myself to be uncomfortable. Because let me tell you, the only way you're going to get comfortable with stuff is if you allow yourselves to be uncomfortable. Just sit with it. And I'm not saying overload your nervous system or give yourself an anxiety attack while you do it. I'm saying expose yourself. Dip your toe in that water. And if it gets too rough, you know that maybe you need to hold somebody's hand next time when you put your foot in the water. But always keep trying, always keep pushing yourself. And if something's uncomfortable, but you can handle it, handle it. Walk through that fire with your head held high and get through it. And you won't believe how proud you'll be of yourself. So yeah, my superpower, the skill that I feel like has been most developed in me as somebody with neurodivergence and the anxiety that comes with being neurodiverse is sitting with being uncomfortable and being okay with that.
Thank you, Steve. I totally agree. That is absolutely a superpower and 100% wish I had that. But yeah, next we're going to hear from Terrell. So Terrell, our question for you is, for current students and those ready to transition from education to work, what advice would you give someone in terms of finding support to develop those skills?
That is a good question. So when I thought about this question, when I think about advice for students or anyone in general getting ready to transition from school or work, I really have to go back to a really important chapter of my own journey. There was a point in my career where I was in a tough spot. I wasn't working. I wasn't sure what direction to go in. and I needed support. I knew I didn't want to climb the corporate ladder in corporate America, because I you know, some of the leaders that I saw were unhappy in career pathways, or not spending the time with family that they would like to, didn't have a good sense of community, that were things that were of great values to me. And 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 so at that time in my life is when I discovered San Diego Workforce Partnership before I even applied to be an employee there. And I visited one of their career centers, and what I found there honestly changed my life. They had programs, they had workshops and resources that were there that were made to help people exactly like me. And one program in particular that helped me really earn my professional certificate in fundraising development, through UCSD's School of Continuing Education. And this program, they covered all of my entire expenses. They call the cost, the tuition, the books, even bus passes and gas money, to help me get to class. And the only thing that I had to do was show up, study, and pass. And this gave me everything that I need to build the structure, skills, and confidence when I needed it most. The second big piece I'll say to this is that, advice that I give is to network, build real connections. So while I was in that program, I met people who became mentors to me. They helped me navigate, uh, the workforce, and different people that they introduced me to, or introduced me to internships. Internships, yes, internships are very important if you're at a space to do that. Um, and that taught me what employers were looking for, right? And then also build up my skills in my resume. Uh, and one of those internships ended up turning into a job for me, and that was amazing, in itself, because some of the folks that, I got to, do that work with an internship, now got to work with them in a paid environment. And when those folks left and moved to other companies, they would often reach out to me to come join them. And so those relationships opened doors that I didn't even know existed. So that's one thing I would give you, and especially if you're transitioning right now, know that there are resources out there, and you don't have to do it alone. Take advantage of different support systems, invest in learning new skills, and don't be afraid to connect with others. You never know how far those connections can take you.
That was great. Great advice. Thank you. So our next question, we're going to hear from Nancy. And Nancy, the question we have for you is, what accommodations, support, or systems or resources have you found most valuable in your career or workplace?
Thank you, Joe. Well, in the beginning, absolutely. It was a challenge, mostly due to not being able to feel comfortable in divulging my diagnoses. It was difficult to say the least. I did start in 2013. It wasn't really, you know, something I felt like I could express. I didn't have the trust yet to identify who I could share my issues. However, there it was, the mixed blessing of COVID and being sent home to work. COVID having a lockdown was probably the best mix of accommodations I could get. I eventually started working under Access Call Center for the agency and dropped all other workloads and just answered calls to offer people my help to people through their cases. I troubleshooted with knowledge and experience. I found supervisors who, like me, yay, were neurodivergent and who were very welcoming of neurodivergence and were able to remind me that my abilities were actually an asset and not a detriment, which I was in such fear of it being. I felt valued. I felt supported. I felt open and willing to share who I am and accept the accommodations they understood I needed. I am now a permanently GWOW, which is Government Without Walls worker. I work from home and I appreciate the ability to do so. It's perfectly set up for me and for my needs. I can arrange it however I need.
Awesome.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Nancy. Now
course.
we're going to pass it back to Steve. And Steve, our next question for you is, what skills are essential for success in your career? And what is one unconventional skill or experience that has been valuable in your career?
Well, beyond just being a champ and being uncomfortable, I I've been able to watch a lot of teachers in my life because I was preparing to be a teacher. So you want to watch your teachers, right? And you learn a lot of things by watching teachers. And a couple of the things and I'm going to name drop here. I hope this gets back to him. I had a coach at Southwestern College way back when I was like 19 years old, named Art Stone, and he was my first judo sensei. And I just could not believe how positive this person was. He could not drop a smile off his face. I'm sure he has bad days. I just don't know where they go because I had never seen that man without a smile on his face. And that's what I bring to the FRC every morning now. And that's what I took to the classroom every morning because it's infectious. It is. You walk in, you smile, you say hello to everybody that you see. I wage a continuous campaign of overwhelming positivity. it and it really does make your day better, and it makes it better for everybody involved. When I pick up that phone and I have a smile on my voice, people can hear it. And every day, every call I make, my goal is to hear somebody smile on the other end of that phone before I hang up. That's my goal. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes people are having real rough days, but most of the time I can turn somebody's day around or at least help make it a little bit shinier. So that is one unconventional skill or experience that was very valuable in my career. Other things, I was a swimmer, water polo player in high school. And so breathing was really important to a swimmer. So I learned how to regulate my breathing and calm my breathing and use breathing techniques way before people even thought of it as a way to, regulate anxiety or your mood. And that has been incredibly helpful in my life. So the ability to breathe, the ability to be uncomfortable, and the ability to smile through it all.
That sounds like a very good trifecta to have. I got to say, I really admire that. Thank you for sharing. So our next question is for Terrell. And the question is, what are some simple but effective tools, practices, or methods that supervisors and managers can use in the workplace to support neurodivergent employees?
Gotcha. One thing I've learned as a leader is that the best support often comes from just the simplest changes. In my office where I currently work at here at the Office of Equity and Racial Justice, we try to create an environment that works for everyone. And that means thinking universally, like Holly said earlier in her presentation about how people work and what they need to feel supported. We start by doing something small but meaningful, offering ergonomic assessments to all staff. That way you can get your workplace set up in an ergonomic way that's healthy for you. And this helps ensure that everyone's workspace is set up the way that supports their needs to make sure they're physically comfortable and the productivity. From there, we've added things like noise canceling headphones for those who need it to help filter out distractions. We have a quiet room where folks can go to decompress or focus, or even in that room too, there's a adjustable light dimming. So if somebody has sensitive to bright environments, we've also placed fidget tools in all of our conference room and collaborative spaces with coloring books throughout the office, not just for neurodivergent staff, but for anyone who needs a mindful moment during the day. These are just simple, best steps that any office can really take to create a more inclusive, sensory-friendly space. But there's something equally more important that I want to make sure that, I tell, managers and people who are looking to do this work that, neurodivergent people, we're not a monolith. So what works for one person with ADHD or autism might not work for the next. That's why might not work for the next person. So that's why it's really important to take your time to get to know the individual, what's their working style, communication preferences, and what really helps them to do their best. There's no one size fits all solution. And we have to just stay curious, stay flexible, and committed to co-creating support systems with the teams, and not just for them, but for all of us. If you think of, you know, uh, ADA requirements, we didn't do that till like 1990 or so. And, those curves that you see on the sidewalk, although at first glance, people may think it's just for somebody, it was dedicated for somebody in a wheelchair. It's been helpful for people delivering packages, for moms who have strollers. It benefits the whole society, right? And that's what universal design is. When you have something in place that, yes, does support one group, but it benefits the whole society. And at the end of the day, it's all about building a culture of just empathy and understanding where everyone feels valued, supported, and able to thrive in their own way.
Thank you for sharing, Terrell. And then our last pre-planned question of the day is for Steve. And the question is, what are some characteristics, qualities, or actions of supervisors that have made you feel comfortable to speak about your neurodivergence?
Well, I will say this, I can speak for people here at Chula Vista and people in the ETC where I was trained, but they all just really took to heart whatever trainings were there. Because there's a huge difference between going through your training and experiencing that training and taking to heart. So everybody at the training center, at ETC, everybody here at Chula Vista, I know, really took that to heart, and really took all those trainings to heart, because from day one here at the county, I decided, I'm too old to hide who I am anymore. I'm just going to be open about it and not make any bones about it. I'm autistic, I'm on the spectrum, and I have ADHD, and it just wasn't ever a question. I was just very open with everybody about my status. And I don't think I ever had to have a distinct conversation with anybody saying, hi, I'm autistic, I need XYZ. So just people being open to hearing, and me, I think, not making it a formal thing was very easy for people to accept. Instead of sitting down and I have something to tell you, I am neurodivergent. It was just, yeah, I'm on the spectrum. Let's move on. And then after that, people come to you and they ask you. And that's what the great thing is. I've never had to ask for anything, because people just come to, hey, I just wanted to let you know we're having a fire drill tomorrow. So, around 10:30, you might want to have your headphones on. Just little things like that are really, really helpful. Just little considerations that my managers have taken that I can tell they paid attention during that training. They weren't on their phone. They were really focused and really took it to heart. So that has made me incredibly comfortable to speak about my neurodivergence, because from day one, that was the way it was. From the second I mentioned it, it was just cool. Let's move forward. And to the point where I had on my whiteboard in my cubicle for about a week, maybe 2 weeks, ask me about my neurodivergence, no, really is one of my special interests. And people will come up and just kind of quietly ask you about things. It's really neat. And that gives you a chance to educate.
Great. Well, thank you, Steve, and thank you to Terrell and Nancy as well for sharing all those insights on and just everything and all of your experiences. So now we're just going to take some time to answer some of the pre-submitted questions from our attendees. But during this time, if any of the attendees have any questions that they would like answers, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and we will do our best to get through as many of them as possible. So from our pre-submitted questions, we do have a few, and one of them that I wanted to start with, this one's for Trill, and it is, what are some examples of reasonable accommodations for neurodivergent employees?
So I think I mentioned a few in my last comment, so I kind of beat you to the answer to that question, but let me see. Some of the things I've already mentioned, like the fidget tools. Like, I mean, I have one right here, that's in the office. I got like this little timer thing that sometimes when I need focus time, I will just put it on and just try to do focus time. But when I think about what it means to create a truly inclusive workspace, I always come back to the idea that inclusion isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about being willing to start somewhere, listen, and grow from there. Um, a few years ago, I worked with a colleague uh, who was neurodivergent and shared that the traditional office settings um, made it really hard to focus. Like the fluorescent lighting was overstimulating the open office space chatter, because for some reason the company that I worked at, they decided to go from those uh high cubicle office space where you can get some quietness, and they put it all the way down to this level so you get to see everybody, right? And it made it a little bit more difficult to concentrate. And um and then when we're in meetings, if you give complex verbal instructions, that it got often lost in translation for this individual. We didn't overhaul the workplace overnight, but we started with small things that uh, I was able to advocate on her behalf. So was able to get her noise canceling headphones, gave her access to a quiet room. We followed up with written notes after a meeting, and slowly but surely, her productivity and confidence began to thrive. Since then, I've learned that accommodations don't have to be like this complicated or expensive or very tutorial or rigid thing. They can be simple as flexible work hours, visual aids, caption meetings, ergonomic furniture, right? That can make a world of a difference. Even allowing people to use time management tools, or asking, would written instructions help? That goes a long way. What matters most is that we ask, we listen, and we respond with care, from a very human-centered place. Um, but the biggest lesson is neurodivergent. I want to iterate this. I can't iterate this enough, that we are not all a monolith. What works for one person might not work for the next. So it's not about a checklist. It's about relationship, curiosity, and co-creating a work environment where everyone can thrive. And if you're a supervisor or a leader wondering where to begin, start small. Make one thoughtful change. Build from there. That's how inclusive culture is created, one human-centered decision at a time. We can't hear you, Joe.
Thank you. Sorry about that. This next question is for Nancy, and the question is, how do you align your career interest with your personal interests?
Well, that's pretty simply said. I don't know if you all know this, but San Diego County's official seal has on it, the noblest motive is the public good. I believe that through to the deepest parts of my soul, even before I worked for the county. If I didn't, I wouldn't be working for the county. All it takes is a motivated person who has the desire to help others and does it for the purest motives of wanting to better the world. Although I'm not a Buddhist, I do respect the teachings of peace and respect. That said, there is a quote from His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, the current believed reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. He's attributed to have stated within other quotes that emphasize his philosophy and teachings, "Today is the right day to love, believe, do, and merely live." That's what I want people. That's what I want to provide to people. I want to share to people the unalienable right to merely live, to be able to live with food, with shelter, with healthcare. Everyone deserves that. Those are just basic needs. I want to help provide that. That's what I want more than anything, to help, to do, to help to who truly need it. That's the mark I want to leave in this world. I
And Joe,
want
I would
someone at my
say,
eulogy to be able to say that I left this world a
no,
better
finish up, Nancy. Sorry.
place than when I entered, a difference in someone's life. Sorry. And everyone has those rights. And it takes a motivated person to ensure that those who need it get it. And that's why I do what I do. And I love it. If I can make sure that someone can feed their family even for a day, or afford to pay rent for a month, or see a doctor when they need, I will. It's all for the public good, and everyone's deserving of that. That's what I believe.
And Joe, I just wanted to
Sorry,
say,
Terrell. Go ahead.
no, no,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no need to apologize. I was interrupting you. I apologize. What Nancy was saying, this is the heart space of a lot of people who are in public service. We don't do it for the money. We do it because the love of humanity, the love of community. So if I wanted to make big bucks, I would go work somewhere corporate, but that's not what I wanted for my life. And I chose this public service life because I'm truly passionate about making a difference. So that still means a lot to me too, just like Nancy. So thank you, Nancy, for bringing that point home.
Of course. And trust me, we're not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the money. Really not.
I can definitely relate to that too. The public service part of it is definitely a very big inspiration. And thank you both for sharing that and just, yeah, really highlighting that. So for our next pre-submitted question, I'm going to hop back to Holly for a moment if she is ready. Holly, the question that we had pre-submitted for you was, is there a model or framework that exists to support neurodivergent employees in the nonprofit workplace? How can employees/administrators create policies that promote equity instead of harm for neurodiverse employees?
I think there could be a whole training on this, so I'll try and be as brief as possible. And yes, there are tons of different models, tons of different frameworks. When it comes to those to support neurodivergent employees in the workplace, and a few of those are universal design, neurodiversity inclusion, and supported employment models. Universal design ensures that workplaces are proactively built to be inclusive of different cognitive styles, sensory needs, and even communication preferences. And Department of Labor has great resources. You can see my neurodivergence by the number of resources I toss in different places. So I promise there will be more as that comes in. Neurodiversity inclusion focuses on identifying barriers and implementing practical solutions based on research. Diversibility In, if you haven't ever checked them out, they're another great organization, and they have a pilot resource for organizations who want to start delving into this. So that's a great one. And then supported employment takes the flexible or a flexible and individualized approach to provide a tailored job coaching and mentorship experience. SAMHSA IPS model is probably the strongest example of that. Here in the county, I would say that neurodivergent excellence leans into more of a universal design model slash neurodiversity inclusion. And much like the curb cut that Terrell was just talking about, where we're designed for mobility access for a specific group, it actually ended up benefiting all of us, right? Same thing in the workplace, designing for differences in communication, interviewing, physical work environments can all have that same holistic benefits to it. When it comes to G's program, we follow more of the supported employment model, and it encourages or ensures that our interns receive coaching, mentorship, and individualized supports to structure for the successful experience that we're really hoping they'll have. For you as nonprofits, but also governments and corporations, as you've heard me over and over, and same with the panelists and Dan, we keep saying small changes lead to big impacts for a reason, because it is about choosing a step today that you can make to ripple that forward. Rethinking job postings, interview formats, bringing in experts to expand awareness, adapting meetings and workspaces for different work styles, and then seeking the input. And this is my favorite and probably the most important to me, is making sure you truly, truly seek the input of those who identify as neurodivergent, where they are and where you are, and in the spaces where you exist. This could look like using anonymous surveys and suggestion boxes, and then set a timeline for your first action. You could say today, you could say by the end of this week, and then start with that one action, find some fruit, and then set another action and another. And then before you know it, you're going to look back and you're going to be amazed by the impact that you formed. Because inclusion really doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's about making intentional, meaningful adjustments that benefit us all.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and I
Joe.
have to give one more kudos to Holly, because when I first came into the county, working with Holly, um, before neurodivergent excellence was a thing, she was doing that. And so me and Holly used to do trainings together. And I would like to say I'm a pretty decent trainer, not as good as Holly, but a pretty decent trainer. And I didn't know time blindness was a thing until after neurodivergent, but Holly would often work with me, and that time blindness would kick in the trainings, and then she's like, "All right, Terrell, we got we got this much time to bring it home, so we have to do this, we have to tighten up." And she would help me, and we would get through those trainings. But there's oftentimes I went on these long tangents. We did good at training people, but like, all right, we got to get to the end of this training, probably like I'm doing right now. But I digress. Thank you, Holly, for always creating such inclusive spaces. I appreciate you.
Right back at you.
Well, that is all the time that we have for questions today, but I would like to say thank you to both our panelists and our presenters just one more time, as you know, we're kind of getting ready to wrap things up here. But I also wanted to take a moment to share this QR code, and it's basically just a quick feedback form. It helps us to make improvements on our content, but we'll go ahead and we'll give you a minute to either scan the QR code or click the link in the chat and take some time to fill it out. And then as people are filling out that feedback form, I just want to say thank you to everybody who attended. And then just a couple of quick announcements before we sign off. So for some upcoming events on April 30th, we will be hosting an in-person event. It's going to be a networking forum on smartphones and youth. We also have an upcoming webinar during Small Business Week and an emergency preparedness training tailored for community-based organizations in May. Stay tuned for more details on these events. And then for information and to register for those, please visit our Virtual Connection Hub website or use the link in the chat. If we missed your question today, please email us. But other than that, that is all the time that we have together today. Thank you again for everyone who joined us, and we hope to connect with you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Sorry, before I jump off, just want to make sure we're okay, Joe.
Yep, we are all good.
Okay, cool.
I'm just hanging around, just making sure everything goes
All
smooth.
right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.